Welcome to another edition of The Brand Called You, a video and podcast show that brings you leadership lessons, knowledge, experience, and wisdom from hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Today it is my unique pleasure to welcome a very accomplished individual who, after speaking to, has been incredibly inspiring to me. George Ibrahim, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
George is a social entrepreneur. He is an inspirational speaker and he's a disability activist. George has been visually impaired since the age of 10 months. He's worked for OBM. He has been the chairman of the World Blind Cricket Council. He's organized the World Cup Cricket for the Blind in 1998. He's conceived and produced the TV show Nazariya, and I think some prominent stars were in it. And very interestingly, George carried the Olympic torch at the Atlanta Games in 1996. So, George, tell me, what would you say are three key milestones in your life or your career?
This is a very difficult question because there are several milestones that I consider that are important.
Yeah.
But if I were to pick three, I would pick number one, 1982, when I got my first job with advertising and sales promotion company as a client servicing executive. Because that was after a year of struggle. I have had this vision impairment from childhood. And when I finished my post-graduation from St. Stephen's, I thought I would conquer the world. But quickly I was put in place. I kind of sent in my applications, and I realized that being a visually impaired person, people are hesitant to even consider hiring you or even entertaining an interview. So when I got my first job in 1982, May, I think that was very significant to me personally.
Correct.
The second important milestone, I would put it as my marriage. Again, it's got significance because being a visually impaired person, of course, people started looking at me as a possible marriageable person once I got my job. But the interesting thing was that every proposal that came my way, the criteria for suggestion was disability. I have nothing against a disabled woman, but if that is going to be the criteria for marriage, I'm against it, because disability cannot be the criteria for marriage in my book.
Correct.
So when I met my wife, and interestingly, Rupa, my wife, is somebody whom I used to go to Sunday school in church as a kid in the early 1970s. And we met again by chance in 1984. She was studying at the Indian Agricultural Research Institute, and I was working with ASP, Advertising and Sales Promotion. And we met in church and got introduced, and we realized that we knew each other. And then, the rest is history, meaning we got married. So I would think that was a kind of a landmark moment in my life. And I think the third milestone in my life is when I found my niche in 1989-90, when I decided to work with the blind. Because that gave me a kind of sense of liberation and a sense of purpose. And it kind of aligned with my passion. And I think if you are able to align your profession with your passion, I think you're a fortunate person.
Fantastic.
So I think these would be significant milestones in my life.
I agree. And that's the reason I ask people to pick three, because that makes them think about what were really the happening or the most important events. So thank you so much.
Sure.
So, George, when I was reading about you, there's a quote from you which says that blindness was not the real problem, but the mindset was. Help me understand this and tell me more.
Yeah, this is something that I kind of articulated for myself sometime in 1999, 2000. I guess this was something that I kind of figured out very early, but I got to articulate it probably in 1999, 2000. I had promoted cricket for the blind, and I had traveled across the country and globally too in this context. In 1998, 99, I also had the opportunity of conducting a series of communication skills development workshops with young visually impaired people.
Okay.
During this time, I had the opportunity of meeting people from different walks of life. And among the blind, I found a lot of them was fairly successful people. They were professionals. They were working, and I just found that the blind people I met and the kind of mindset that people had, there was a mismatch. And I realized that very quickly that whether it's family members, whether it is people in school, the teachers, the administrators, whether it's the bureaucracy, the politicians, the medical professionals, they all tended to focus on the blindness and totally overlook the fact that the person is a human being first.
Correct.
And blindness is not everything about George Abraham, for instance. There's a lot to me beyond my blindness. Yes, my blindness does pose challenges, and there are ways around it. But people kind of stop at the blindness. They're to the extent that they're obsessed with the blindness, and the blindness kind of limits the thinking. Like parents suddenly think, "Oh my God, my son is blind or my daughter is blind. This is the end of the world." An ophthalmologist, when he diagnoses a blind person, he says, "Oh, I can't cure this person. I can't treat this person. Oh, this guy's future is doomed." That may not be the view of every ophthalmologist, but most of them, that would be the thing that. And what does the blind person or the parents or the family members take away from the hospital or clinic? It's doom, and disaster. And the politicians, the bureaucracy, they all are kind of biased and influenced by the blindness, and as a result, they do kind of gross injustice to the human being that is behind or intrinsic or within the visually impaired person.
Correct.
So that is why the statement, the real problem is not the blindness; it is the way people think, the way people perceive blindness.
Well said. Well said. So, moving on, what are the common causes for visual impairment?
See, the biggest cause for blindness in India is cataract, which is normally 55 plus people. 55 plus, it's a natural progression. It's an organic thing. Most people get it. Many people in urban India have the opportunity of getting the cataract surgically removed, and an intraocular lens is kind of fitted in, so that the vision continues to be normal. But there are a huge population. It's said that 70 to 80% of people who are blind in India, they are not reached by medical services. And so that is the predominant cause of blindness. But then there's corneal blindness, where your cornea is damaged. There are a number of cases of retina-related blindness, optic nerve-related blindness, glaucoma, if not treated at the correct time, it could lead to blindness. And then vitamin A deficiency could be a cause of blindness for people who are young. So these are some of the common causes in India for vision impairment or blindness.
Very interesting.
Yeah. So of course there is also what they call the word escapes me now, but people correct it with glasses. Okay. But that doesn't lead to blindness; that leads to vision impairment.
Correct. Well said.
Yeah.
So I'm going to move to now your avatar as a cricketer. In a cricket crazy country, you actually founded the World Blind Cricket Council. And, when we were speaking yesterday and earlier, I was asking you what kind of support did the BCCI give? And my question to you is, what were the challenges you faced in setting up the World Blind Cricket Council, and what were your learnings?
Well, the World Blind Cricket Council, in a manner of speaking, was a culmination of 7 odd years of effort. It started off with organizing a national tournament in Delhi in 1990. Now, the first thing was, when you talk about cricket, there's a lot of excitement. But when you say that blind people playing cricket, there are interesting responses. There's a fairly prominent media person who said, "Why are you forcing people to play cricket? Why are you forcing blind people to play cricket?" And I had to tell him that, it's not me who's forced them to play cricket. It is their passion that has compelled them to play cricket. And this passion for cricket came to them through cricket commentaries on radio. and you would realize that there is a very close link between radio and people who are blind, because
Correct.
at least till in the 60s, 70s, 80s, and probably even in the 90s, the biggest source of information for visually impaired people was the radio.
Mm.
And in a cricket crazy country, there are, it's not just the blind who listen to cricket commentaries. There are lots of people who listen
Correct.
to it, you know. And I
Correct.
grew up at a time when radio was the primary source, and I was spurred on to become a fast bowler, and that was my dream. Of course, that dream was not fulfilled. So I often say that cricket for the blind has, and the contributions I made was a direct consequence of my passion to become a fast bowler.
Fantastic.
So it was that expression, as Mahendra Singh Dhoni says, you got to express yourself. So that was my form of expressing myself in the space of cricket.
That's fantastic.
And so the first step was to get the national cricket program for the blind in India going, and it was very difficult to get sponsorship. It was very difficult to get support in terms of volunteers to come and help out during the tournament. There would be a few people who would come forward, but by and large, people would come out of curiosity to just watch and see how the game was going on and how the game was played. Then there was the next challenge, I guess, was to get the infrastructure, like stadiums and grounds and so on. People were hesitant to give their grounds. They would say that, oh, the blind would damage the grounds or whatever. So, but again, when you approach 100 people, there would be 10, 15 who would be positive, so the movement started. Low resources, low on manpower, but we kind of put together the first national tournament, and this became an annual feature. And I was lucky that the Dorabdi Tata Trust kind of supported me when I announced that in 1993 that in 5 years' time we'll organize the first ever World Cup. So they kind of responded to my request and appeal when I said that I need to concentrate on this effort full time, because if I were to kind of also look for my bread and butter at the same time, it might be difficult. So they supported me, and I would like to acknowledge them for their believing in my vision and running along with me. And so we kind of went on. It was only in 1993 when I announced the World Cup did the media for the first time come out in big numbers to write about cricket for the blind and the vision of the World Cup. The next challenge was to connect with similar thought leaders and organizations in other countries. So I went the route of connecting through the various embassies and high commissions, and many of them were very positive. They were happy to connect me. And then the next challenge was when I spoke about the World Cup to these various countries, Australia, England, New Zealand, South Africa, and so on, Pakistan and Sri Lanka, and of course India. These were the initial countries, and Australia said, how do we know that this is credible? Can you come over and make a presentation to the Australian Blind Cricket Council? So I didn't have the money to go to Australia, and then I approached the Australian High Commissioner and I said, I don't have the resources, and this is what you connected me with these people, but they want me to go to Australia. So the guy said, his name was Mr. Laurie, may I forget the first name, but his surname was Laurie. He said that there is an India-Australia cultural promotion department in the High Commission, and there is a program. So we encourage people from India to go to Australia and Australians to come to India and engage with each other. So why don't you apply under that? So I got that monies from them. So I went to Australia, spoke to the Australian Blind Cricket Council, kind of inspired them, as it were, and they were excited about it. And they said they will get the people from New Zealand along. And we had this 2-day meeting in September of 1996. Where 7 nation delegates from 7 nations sat around the table. I had put together an agenda. I had made my kind of notes on standardized rules after consulting with the rules of the various countries, because the rules were different in different countries. The ball used was different. And so we had a 2-day kind of conference where, the discussion on the rules was not very contentious. But when it came to the ball and the equipment, people were wanting to kind of hold on to their own. And finally, on the second day, at about just before we broke for lunch, I said, gentlemen, if you guys want to hold on to your ball, literally, then you better go back right now. But if you want international cricket and want a World Cup, then I think we need to kind of think beyond our ball.
Right.
And then, interestingly, post-lunch, the delegate from New Zealand just stood up and said, we want a World Cup. And I proposed that the Indian ball be used because, it was the cheapest, low cost. Economics also is a very important factor here because the more developed countries like England and Australia, they could afford a ball which was, say, $10 or $12. But in India, we had a ball which was 12 rupees. So there's a huge. So that was a
I agree.
Great.
I agree.
And then the post lunch was essentially kind of agreement on forming the World Blind Cricket Council, agreeing upon the name WBCC or the World Blind Cricket Council. I was elected as the founding chairman because of the pioneering effort that I had taken to bring people together onto one table and suggesting the idea of a first World Cup. That was so a body was formed, office bearers were kind of elected, and we decided that we would hold the first World Cup in.
So when was
India.
when was the first World Cup held?
It was held in November 1998.
And has this become an annual feature or every 4 years?
It's a every 4-year event. Having it organized every year is going to be.
No, I understand. I mean, World Cups are.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to go keep moving with the questions because there's such an amazing life journey you have, and I want to try and cover as much as I can in our time.
Sure.
So, George, you were also associated with a television show, which was Nazariya. I wanted to know what was the motivation behind this show or this TV show.
Okay, there are 2-3 very quick things I would say. That when I started my work with the visually impaired, coming from advertising, my first idea was to do a television show to create awareness. And I had written a little story called Abhilasha, and I had approached, I had listed on 5 directors with whom I would like to work, which included Satyajit Ray and Sai Paranjpe, Said Mirza, Shashi Kapoor and Amol Palekar. I wrote to all of them, and Shashi Kapoor kind of, responded. We had a series of meetings, but we found that there were bureaucratic challenges in Doordarshan at that point of time, which we couldn't immediately circumvent or get past. And that was around the time when I saw blind kids playing cricket, and I felt that this was a great project to kind of take up and pursue, because I saw great value in promoting sport for the blind.
Correct.
So the television project was kind of shelved. But in 1998-99, after I kind of did this communication skills workshop, I just felt that awareness was, while cricket was creating an awareness, but I just felt that we needed to reach households in the country with positive information and awareness regarding life with blindness. That's when I set up a project called iWay, which is basically, largely speaking, it's a knowledge portal on living life with blindness, with the objective of creating awareness and giving information to people who are visually impaired and their families. It also had the agenda of doing campaigns which would spread awareness and the sensitivity among the people at large. Because I believe that while it is important to empower people with vision impairment, it's also important to create a sensitive and accessible ecosystem within which they can operate. The mainstream needs to also think positively, and there is a lot of lack of access to services. Like for example, people publish books. The print is inaccessible, but e-text and braille makes it accessible. So that was the idea. Campaign to sensitize and build awareness, and to kind of give information so that blind people also are sensitized and they are also empowered. So that's how the iWay project started. And under this umbrella, we had a website. We had created a radio program, which was broadcast across the country. It was called iWay Ye Hai Roshni Ka Karwa. And then, I met. I got, this is an interesting thing. I kind of, for the first time, noticed that there was an alumni group, St. Stephen's College on Facebook. So I became a member there and wrote a little bit about my work. And one of the Stephanians kind of got in touch and said, I'd like to meet you. And we had a chat, and he happened to be a filmmaker. And we talked about various things. And I also told him about my idea of doing a serial for television, which I shelved. I didn't notice that he was making notes. But 2 days later, he came back to me and he said, why don't we make a television serial? And he had taken notes of what I had spoken.
Okay.
And then we decided to do it. The whole idea of the television serial was to communicate the potential and possibilities that there are in a life with blindness, where the target audience is universal, And so there was a 13-part. This is the story of Nazariya, how it came into being itself is a story for a chapter in a book. But I will not take too much of time. But
no. I mean, maybe I'm going to talk to you again on this Nazar and Nazariya. That's something.
Yeah. But, so we kind of came together and we wrote this little concept note. We met the Director General of Doordarshan, who at that point of time, as luck would have it, was a Stephanian, and he was a year junior to me in college, and I knew him well. And we met him and we didn't talk about, it was like an old time connect kind of thing. But while I was leaving, interestingly, he said that, George, if you have any ideas for television, let me know.
Okay.
And so I didn't say anything then, but a week later I called him back and I said, I have an idea and a friend and I would like to come and see you. So this filmmaker and I, we went, we showed him the thing. He said, be quick on this. Why don't you make a pilot and all that? So we didn't have the money for it. But fortunately, there was a kind of an international bid for a global project, and we put in our bid to make a television serial to build awareness. And interestingly, we were one of the 13 organizations globally to win this bid out of a total of 700 odd applicants.
Okay.
And the money was there, and then there were a couple of corporates who pitched in. And we approached Nasir Saab, Nasiruddin Shah, and Harsh Chhaya to be part of this project. And the project became a reality. And from the 21st of September 2013 to the 11th of December 2013, we had 13 episodes, which was widely watched. And
are these available on YouTube?
Yes, of course. We have a YouTube channel called iWay India.
Okay.
Where you do a Google search for Nazariya, and you would get there. Yeah.
Fantastic. I'm going to look for it, and I'm sure all our viewers will also look for it. So, George, I have time for only one more question now.
Sure.
And I'm trying to debate whether I should ask you about the Olympic torch or whether I should ask you what does success mean to you. But maybe I'll ask you, what does success mean to you? I mean, you've achieved so much in so many different areas. What is success to George?
Success is basically a sum total of happiness, if you ask me. It might sound very Bhutanese at the moment, but I've actually pursued happiness. I just believe that I need to be happy all the time. And to do that, I realized that I need to do things that I'm passionate about. So I'm not too much into money, as long as I can keep mind, body and soul together.
Correct.
And fortunately, my wife and my kids also kind of believe in the same philosophy. We have our fun, we go out, we travel. We may not travel as much as maybe the senior or the corporate world, the executives from the corporate world do, but we have our own elements of fun, and we enjoy our life. And the whole idea is to keep life simple, uncomplicated, do things that we are passionate about, and you have your little milestones which you feel happy about. And I think the Olympic torch also was a kind of opportunity that came my way because of my involvement with cricket for the blind, and it made me feel good. And there were certain such moments of celebration which I would cherish in my life. But I think the whole thing is in pursuit of happiness.
Fantastic. George, thank you so much. And I'm sure I'm going to come back and talk to you again on some other subjects because it's been such a fascinating discussion. Thank you again, and I wish you lots and lots and lots of success.
Thank you, Ashutosh, for inviting me and being part of this, the brand called You. And
well, in this particular is the brand called George. So
right. Yeah, the U is George at this moment, yes. Well, thank you very much for this opportunity to be on your platform.
Thank you again.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening to the brand called You videocast and podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for the brand called You.